Well, I finally decided to rip the rear end apart so I can put in the Caltrack bars, the Caltrack leaf springs in the rear end, and I'm also going to put in the Speedway Motors rear anti-roll bar. I made it a weld in instead of a bolt in, and this design should come out. You should be able to use that for a stock rear end as well. So it's welded up, and I made it to where the bar will actually come out once it's up in the body, so that way you can put a different size bar in there. So I'm going to go ahead and slap this up real quick, show you what it actually looks like. Welcome to my mess. These are Mopar B body 66 to 69 spring relocation buckets. Normally these fit great, probably fit really good on a stock bodied car, but I had to plasma cut the end off because I have a perimeter frame system in my car. And I don't know if you can see or not, but it goes around the outside all the way down and around, ties into the transmission cross member. And yesterday I put in my Speedway Motors anti-sway bar, which should clear so I can change the bar if I ever need to. It'll pull right out so I can put a bigger bar in. This stuff is absolutely horrible to weld to. No matter how well you cleaned it, it sucked royal. So today I'm going to finish cutting that out. I used a cutoff wheel on it, but I think I can do a better job with a plasma cutter as far as a straight line goes. It's a pain in the ass, but gotta keep at it so I can get it done. I'm going to relocate the transmission cooler. It's going to go onto the bar there. It was in a trunk. Transmission lines I think will work. Have to relocate the brackets on the rear end. I have to cut off some of the back bracing. I think they're going to go right at the edge of the axle. And then the other modification I got is that's part of my new fuel system. The other pump is in the tank still, but I'm going to run twin pump. One's going to be controlled by a vacuum switch, the adjustable vacuum switch. The tank is going to require a slight little bit of modification, but it'll just barely fit. So I'm going to get back on this thing, see if I can't get it done so I can put all that in it. Maybe I actually get to drive it. So here's what it looks like once it's put in there. It's 9 inches from here to there. Sway bar sits above the rear end, doesn't affect the body. And once the bars are installed, they come out, that will come out right in front of the axle about 1 inch. And luckily, for the stock setup, it actually misses the shocks by a little bit. Now with my setup, when I go to put the leaf spring relocation brackets in, here, it's gonna move my shocks into about 3.5 inches, so it's gonna change the angle for the shock to the rear end. So instead of 17s, I may have to get 16s. I'm not 100% sure. But I think it looks pretty good and it fits and it's going to work, and that's the main thing. Well, after using the grinder, the air grinder, cutoff wheel, the saw, and the plasma cutter, I finally got it in there. Now I gotta level it out, clean it up, weld it, and be done with it. So far so good. That was a pain in the butt too. Like everything else isn't a pain in the butt. On to the next one. Now, Caltrack traction bars are great if you got stock suspension. But if you're doing a leaf spring move where you're narrowing the leaf spring in, then the problem you're going to run into is this pin will hit the relocation bracket. Now you can buy a solid pin that's similar to this, it just there's nothing on it that you can do that will work with your bracket. But seeing how none of that is really structural, I'm simply going to take my plasma cutter, cut it off to where the pin would ride at. Because all the weight is forcing up on the leaf spring in that direction anyway. So all this really is not going to do a whole lot other than fill the hole basically. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the plasma cutter, hack that out. Got the tires in, Hoosiers 295, 55, 15 VR2s, and they are soft too. That's done. Got the rear bushing eyelets and the springs taken care of. Those are a nightmare. Have fun with that. You can see what it did to my bench press vise. It kind of tweaked that a little bit. Did the initial mock-up. Got the leaf spring perches on. So I just got to finish welding those up. And that'll be good. I got to finish welding the buckets in and then put everything back together, and then I can make everything for the spring sliders in the rear, which are going to be about 4.5 inches down from the frame. And then I got to cut a 1/2 inch off the back brace for the bolt to clear. It's actually about a 1/4 inch off of the brackets, because these brackets are about 1 inch to 3/4 inch narrower than factory. The pinion angle originally was +1 on these cars, the way it was set up. I got pinion angle set at -4 degrees. And I finish welding and do some more fabrication and have some fun. Alright, got the rear end back in. I got a piece of all thread that I use to center the get the width right, which is 36.25 in between the springs, which matches the front. I got it set up on the top of a jack stand so I can figure out where the spring's actually going to ride on the body once the weight's all the way down. So I can start working on that for my Caltrac sliders. I got the 10-inch rim in. I've got 2.5 inches to the spring, about the exact same up top. The only problem I may have may be this back corner up here. I'm not sure yet. And it's going to be close to the lip up there, but I think it'll pass. And also, this is going to come down to about 4 inches off the bottom of this, which will technically put it on the first hole of the actual leaf spring hanger, which will give me 4 inches. I think that'll work out pretty good. Pinion angle is set at 4 degrees negative. I got to measure out for the anti-roll bar, the brackets that come out the front. They're going to mount in the front of the spring over here. And then figure out my shocks. I can actually measure that now to see what the difference is versus stock. And then I get to start modifying the gas tank to clear the bolts on the sliders. I actually cut the bolt down because it stuck out another 3/4 of an inch, which is you don't need. So I cut that down. So that way it's not going to intrude into the tank any more than it absolutely has to. So it's getting there, slowly but surely. It's looking pretty good. I like it so far. These are the rear spring hanger brackets I'm going to make for the cow tracks. And if you notice, the lines are off. 3/8 to 1/4 inch. And I had forgotten and I was reminded that the passenger side of the car is 3/8 further, 3/8 to 1/4 inch back than the driver's side. So it means they built the car out of square, which is no real surprise. The problem with that is that the frame that I put in is square. So when I jack it up to put the weight on the body to line up everything where it needs to go, the spring would actually sit over here instead of 1 inch from there to the inside of the spring. So I got to adjust for that. Now the nice thing about the buckets I bought, the Mopar B body buckets, I don't know if you can see that. Let me get the light. Is that on the buckets, the holes are actually bigger than the bolts that are made for the spring, which works out to be a good thing. And what I did originally is I took a lock washer and I flattened it out and I welded it on there to make up for the extra space in the spring hole. So what I had to do is cut those back out, and that allowed about an 1/8 inch more forward that I can grab the whole rear end and tweak it over this way. So that gave me about an 1/8 inch swing up here, which translates in the back to about 1/4 inch, which is exactly what I needed to get the distance right from side to side. So once I get the rear spring sliders put in, get the brackets welded in, get the sliders up, then I can come back up here and make sure this side is shoved forward, and I can tack weld my lock washer back on, which should keep it in place where it needs to be. There's nothing like working on a 50-year-old car to really get things going. So that's where I'm at now. I'm getting ready to plasma cut this and get that mocked up. These are going to sit up. It's a 1/4 inch steel, which is too thick, but it was free, so I'm using it. And that's going to sit up flush like that. And then I'm going to come down to whatever it needs to be, the 2 inches or whatever. And then I'm going to weld a box onto that, and then I can weld the sliders onto that. I'm going to plasma cut around the original rear shackle hanger, so that way everything's nice and flush, and then I can set it up to here. And it'll be nice and level when I'm done. And it'll come out nice, hopefully. I pity the poor guy who's got to align this damn thing. Really hope it all comes out right. Otherwise, that might be a little expensive. Alright, I'll be back when I get some of them tacked down and see what it looks like. little update for you. And another week later. I don't move too fast. I don't set goals anymore because I ain't gonna make it. I get done when I get done. I've got 295 55-15s on, 10-inch rim, 6.5 back spacing, and they do clear the inner lip. Don't really look like it from this vantage point, but they clear about a 3/16 to a quarter to the bulge. And on the leaf spring, I've got 2 inches to the leaf spring, about 1.25 to 1 3/8, depending on how you measure, to the frame on the back side, closest to the bulge part. And the spring setup I got it right now for the sliders looks like that. That's a 2-inch block. I think I'm going to drop it down another inch. So I'm going to replace it with that. And the only problem I may run into is I might run into this area right up here. Might be an issue. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think I'm going to drop it down. To the bottom of my frame, here down I got 10 inches. Up there I've got 7 inches from the bottom of the cross member down. So if I drop that down another inch, it'd be 7 and what, 9. I think that'll work out kind of nice. And then this is the view from the inside the trunk. You can see that. That's how far it protrudes in, roughly. So I may or may not have to modify the gas tank for the sliders. Not 100% sure yet. I gotta modify the gas tank anyway. But so far it's going quite well and I'm happy with it. We'll see how it goes. Well, I finally got them done. Leaf spring sliders are in. Came out nice and clean. Next thing I need to do is modify the gas tank, see what that looks like. Welds were interesting. Some came out better than others. Depends on how clean I was able to get crap. But I think for the most part, it came out pretty much exactly how I wanted it to. They're set at about 75%, so they got enough to come back. Next is I'm going to put the gas tank in it and see how much got to modify the side of the gas tank to clear this. And I think I'll end the video here because the next one's going to be modifying the gas tank, because I don't want to put a fuel cell in it. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I think it'll work out a little bit better. So with that in mind, dropping it down another inch comes out pretty good. And the tire will clear here. The only place I'd have an issue would be like 4.5 inches from here to there. But I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that. The back clears no problem. The front clears no problem. Same thing, about 4.5 inches to here. That's where it would hit if it does hit. But for the most part, it come out nice. It lowered it down to 9.5 here, 7 in the front. So yeah, on to the next thing. Hopefully it won't take quite as long as this one did, but I'm in no rush anymore. I just take my time, do it right. Alright, well, I'll see you another month or so.